All right, so Isaac Rodrigues released a new film. Kaylee thinks we're talking about X-Files episodes, but we're not. We're talking about this movie really quick. This movie is called Visher. Visher?
Like Fisher,
yeah,
but with
Visher.
a V.
Visher.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Isaac Rodrigues is an indie filmmaker who has made maybe 4 other films we watched. We watched like Deadware, Last Radio Call, Town Full of Ghosts, and Mr. Creep, right? And so we liked most of those.
Yeah.
I didn't like A Town Full of Ghosts much, but I think I remember liking the other ones to varying degrees. So I was like, oh, cool, he's got a new flick out, and let's talk about it. So, as far as a concept goes, I liked the concept of this for sure. This is about a guy who is a telephone scammer, and he's, as far as like how much of this is like on him and how much of this is like him being forced to do it, I couldn't really get a read on that as well. He seems pretty culpable, honestly. At first, I thought they were trying, because there was a John Oliver expose that he did in one of his recent episodes where he talked about like the scam calls and how people get really mad at these people and they're terrible people and this and that. But he was saying, like, realistically, behind the scenes, what you don't know is that a lot of them are basically being held prisoner or like slaves to this, and they're like basically holding their lives over their head or their families' lives over their head or any of this kind of stuff, and like forcing them to do it. They kind of played ish around with that in here, but not to a degree where I completely understood how much he was being like forced to do it. Anyway, but he has to make this like final call for the night. He's asked to get an absurd amount of money from this girl, and he calls her. He tries to do like a security cam kind of like scam on her, hacks into her security cameras, and sees that there is some supernatural, potentially, things going on, and becomes very obsessed with her.
Yeah. And
feels like he wants to protect her, which of course goes against what he's supposed to be doing. He is wheelchair bound. That's also a part of this that's important. And I think that's all I can really say about it, which is quite a bit, but I mean, that is the premise. I don't know what else to say. Overall, I'm very mixed on this one. I would say I'm more on the dislike side than the like side. It kind of like had me going in different directions with that, where I was kind of like, oh, that's cool. And then I was like, that's really stupid. That's really unbelievable. And then, the acting was pretty typical for one of his films. It's not good. It's not terrible. It's just like amateur in a way that's like suited for this kind of movie. Like, would it have benefited from better acting? Yes, absolutely, sure. I mean, what movie doesn't benefit from better acting? Unless the acting is about as good as you get. So I don't know. I just kind of felt very uneven with this film as far as my thoughts towards it, and ultimately I would not recommend it unless you're like a big fan of his films or a big fan of like indie horror that feels low budget and has questionable acting. The end was cool, and then it wasn't, and then it was. So, what do you think?
I think I'm pretty similar to you in terms of feeling mixed, but I think I fall a little bit more on the like side versus you. I really liked the story. I thought that the story was very interesting. Like, I liked the setup and the gimmick. And I like that there's, just some elements there with, especially with a scammer. I think that there was some cool things that were played with as far as our emotional connection to the character.
Yeah.
And I found that there was some really good horror elements. I think there's some genuinely creepy shots and like really good setups for scares. I liked the effects, the makeup effects that are used. Reminded me of Evil Dead, which I thought was pretty cool. And I think the ending was... I liked the ending. I think the ending was messed up. And I kind of like where it went because there's a twist that happens, and, I think I was on board with it.
It's kind of like multiple twists that happen.
There are, yeah, but I know what you're saying about the acting. I do think that it is kind of amateur, but ultimately for me, I think it worked. And I think in this case, because the writing is really solid, I liked a lot of the dialogue and, again, the plot and everything. So I feel like the actors had that to rely on, whereas like if the script had been poor, in my opinion, it would have been maybe more difficult to find that balance. But I don't know. I do think that it's the kind of movie that, like, if you're a fan of his other, like you said, of his other films, you should definitely check it out and support him. And if you do like indie, like low budget horror movies, I would recommend it. I don't know. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's not like, I don't know. It's always hard doing these reviews because I'm not super impressed with it or anything. But overall, I found it to be enjoyable. And I just thought that the premise was pretty interesting. I guess that's kind of more what was the best part for me.
I think that the writing is mostly like... I shouldn't say mostly. I'll say I think the writing is oftentimes... unbelievable and convenient, and just kind of like that kind of writing that's like, we're just gonna put this here because that's the next logical step for this, but I'm not gonna, like, I don't know, you can come up with more believable ways of writing it, but because of the like goals that they have set in place and what we're working from, there's gonna be some conveniences that have to be extended to this story and script. So I don't blame it exactly, but I definitely think this is the kind of movie that you go into on a recommendation and you think, these guys have shit taste in films. I'm never taking their fucking word for it again. So for me, it's not a recommendation for anyone who's like reactive to recommendations and thinks like, oh, these low budget fucking garbage movies, like I want real opinions from real people. I mean, if I really liked the film, I would stand by it, but I don't feel strong enough about this film to say that. I feel that I liked I liked parts of it for sure.
Yeah.
And I still think Isaac has talent, and I think that he makes cool films, and I look forward to seeing his next movie.
Yeah, I agree.
So we've enjoyed everything he's made to some degree or another, and I do look forward to it. I mean, I saw it was him, and when I did, I was like, cool, I'll watch it.
Yeah.
And I did, and I don't regret it. I'm fine with it. I just know this audience. And I know how they'll react to a movie like this. And so for me, unless you're like already primed for this kind of film or his films in the past, it's not a big recommendation for me personally. But I did like it. And as you said, like, so the ending went like, oh, that's interesting. I kind of wondered if that was what was happening. And then it was like, who am I supposed to be rooting for here? And then I was like, not happy. And then I was like, oh, okay, that puts a new look on things.
Yeah.
Interesting. So then, which is set up earlier. And then I'm like, okay, I like that. So the very, very ending, I did quite like. I thought that was cool and fucked up. And I was like, all right, I'm on board with that for sure. So I don't know, maybe I'm tipping a little into the more like than dislike area because I do like the premise. I do like some of the setups. I think the dialogue is corny and convenient and unbelievable, but not the worst thing ever. And the acting is... And yeah, so that's how I feel.
Okay.
Is that enough? I think I'm good on this. All right. Well, if you watch it, let us know. We'll see you in the comments. Adios.
Bye.